Hello and happy Monday. We are excited to see you here today. My name is Maggie Nielsen and I am a partner at Purse Strings. We come on every Monday to bring some financial tips, knowledge, and know-how to our wonderful communities. At Purse Strings, we're always providing free financial education on top tier financial professionals who are willing, ready, and able to serve the female market. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and Beth Blecker is one of them. So we're so excited to have you on today, Beth.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Absolutely.
We are going to be talking about retirement, reality, and some myths that are going on, which I know we just kind of talked about before this, and I'm excited to dive into because they are huge myths about retirement. And so before we dive into all of that, would you give the audience a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Right. So my name is Beth Blecker, and the name of my company is Eastern Planning, Inc., and I have been a comprehensive, holistic financial planner since 1995. And prior to that, I was an accountant. And since I was a working mother, I was never a CPA because it was too much to get that part of it done and work and raise two children at the same time. But I've been in finance for a very, very long time, and I love it. And recently I've written a book called It's Not Just Money, It's Life, which is a conversation of what we do at Eastern Planning and my beliefs, and also relating my life history to it as well.
Awesome. And where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from my main office, which is in Nanuet, New York.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're so excited to have you on and talk about these myths. And so since you do this comprehensive planning, you help people with all their financial plans and going into retirement and, seeing what that retirement wants to look like. And people all the time, we hear that I'm going to kind of be at home, relaxing in retirement. So I'm going to spend less than what I do normally. And you're telling me this is wrong.
Well, if you stop and just think about life, every day you go to work, you drive, you get on a train, and you go to your office every day. Sometimes you bring a bag lunch, sometimes you go out to eat, sometimes you have lunch come in, and then you go home and you have dinner and you're tired and you watch TV. Well, now you don't get up and go to work anymore. What do? Everything that you're going to do probably costs more money than you ever spend going to work 5 days a week. You're going to learn how to play tennis. You're going to learn how to play golf. You're going to take art lessons. You're going to do photography. A lot of my clients do photography. Very expensive.
Yeah.
You're going to do cooking lessons. You're going to go to theater. You're going to go on vacation, because in retirement, I always tell my clients, there's 3 stages. There's the go-go stage. That's when you're off and traveling and having a wonderful time. There's the slow-go stage. That may be your least expensive time, because you're really not up to traveling as much and you're staying home more, right? And maybe you're not into the country club anymore or the boating anymore. But then there's the no-go stage. But in the no-go stage, you need more help. And you spend a lot more money on healthcare and on people to help you live your life. So you're not spending less.
Yeah, it seems like it's you're not spending less, you're just allocating it differently, which is not always the most exciting thing, that we have to pay people to help clean ourselves and feed ourselves, but it's true, or it might be true for some, but we do want to go live those experiences while we have those go-go years. And so we want to make sure we have enough money to do those things, because you've lived this whole life, you worked this whole life, let's play some golf, let's go travel. But it is important to make that plan, because you are spending money all day unless you're just volunteering pretty much.
And one of the biggest problems is you say that, people think they're going to spend less. Well, people tend to be either spenders or savers. So let's go to the savers, right? So the savers save this big pile of money. They're constantly saving for years and years and years. Every paycheck, money goes into their 401k and the after-tax savings, and they're saving, especially when the children grow up and they cost a little bit less money. So they're saving, 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 and now they're retired. And they made this nice big pile of money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
They want to keep saving. Their concept of, I can't spend that much money. I'm not going to take that money out. And you don't have a concept of how much can you spend so that, and I'm not going to say you never run out of money because I can't guarantee that.
Right.
But so that you probably won't run out of money. And not only will you probably not run out of money, but you'll probably die with as much money as you started retirement with, maybe even a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is not to die the richest person in the world.
Mm-mm.
And the goal, well, for most people, the goal is not to leave as much money as you can to your children. But the goal for all of my clients that have children is never have to go to the children and say, I need to go live with you. I need your money. I can't support myself anymore.
Yeah.
That's a mother's biggest fear in life.
Yeah. And they don't want to deal with that. But as a spender, if you're not saving anymore, going to work, you're going to have to spend some of that money just to stay alive.
Well, as a saver, it's the harder part. The problem is, as a spender, you're into spending.
Mm-hmm.
And now the goal of a financial advisor is to make sure you don't spend too much. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's where I would be at.
I threaten my clients that are the spenders. I threaten them and I say, well, you have to promise me you're going to die at 84 because that's when you run out of money. They don't like that so much.
Hey, you got to be honest, which is so important because, you don't want to run out of money. And so clearly, retirement does not get cheaper than daily life. If anything, it might get more expensive. So we definitely want to kind of debunk that myth and either, talk to a financial professional, make a plan, whatever that is to get you through retirement because it's not going to be cheaper. And then another thing, my mom was stoked when I turned 18 because she's no longer responsible for me. But when you're saying this is a myth, that parents are no longer responsible for their children, once they're an adult.
Actually at 18. At 18, they've got a minimum of, well, most, not everybody. Some kids go on to a technology type school or they go out into the workforce. Yes. But still, they're not self-sufficient. But at 18, when you're off to college, well, maybe you've done a great job with your 529 plans and you've got their college all paid for. So you don't have to worry about that. However, they still come home and they still call and they still need money. And so many children, when they go out to the workforce, come back.
Especially today.
Home. That's right.
I mean, with COVID, with everything else, it's so common almost to come back home, which in many other countries is very normal not to move out until you're married or older, or things like that. But here it was less common. But with COVID, with prices rising, we're all moving back home with mom.
And the other thing that's also sort of a myth, it's also a myth that they moved out and they're independent. Because the majority of young adults that I know that graduate college and get the apartment, and remember, I'm in the suburb of New York City, so they go to New York City, or they go to some other, like Hoboken, or now Stamford, Connecticut is a big place, and they go off to their own apartments. They can't afford them. Their parents are helping them. So they go off on their own, but you're still quite there helping.
Definitely. And those are very lovely parents to have, to be able to have that support. But like you're sharing, it's also something you need to financially plan for, because we see a lot of times where parents will help up front, with college and things like that, but they spent all their retirement on that. And so now when they're going into retirement, all of a sudden that's on the child to help them pay for things.
Then they didn't have a good financial plan.
Right.
Because the goal is never to spend your retirement on your kids' education. The goal is always to have separate funds, because if one of the things I said in the very beginning is you don't want to go to your kids at a certain age and say, that's it, my money's gone, now it's your turn. Support me. You don't want to do that.
So what are some tips to kind of plan for these adult children that we're still taking care of?
Well, the easier part of these adult children that we were just speaking about is they're graduating school and they're going to get a job, and eventually they're going to be okay. So it's just planning that you're going to be responsible for them longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easy plan. The hard plan is when something bad happens to the adult children that is unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to sit back, and I always try to help with stories, real stories. And one of the stories that I have is an adult child who passed away with a ex-husband who was unable to take care of the two children. And the parents had to first get custody of the children,
Mm-hmm.
and then had to support the children. And where the only planning that you could have done is really make sure that all your adult children have adequate life insurance, so that
Yep.
at least financially you're not responsible for them, because you are going to be responsible for those children, your grandchildren, and they have the proper legal documents. Because if you don't have good legal documents, it's going to be so, not you, your children, adult children who don't think about this,
Yep.
don't have good legal documents. It's going to be so hard for you to get control and be able to manage these children. And you don't want the courts involved. You want to be able to get this done on your own. So you always have to plan for the unexpected. And in planning for the unexpected, you really have to sit down and say, what is the worst case scenario that can take
Mm-hmm.
my retirement? And then you put things in place that will help.
That's a great piece of advice. And it's, coming to your financial professional and letting them know what these new things are going on in your life. Now I'm a grandma to 3 or whatever that may be. And so as you, as the professional, can help out and say, okay, is the mom insured? How do you want to support these grandchildren with college, with different things? And so they can kind of adjust their plan as well. Because as we were kind of talking about before jumping on this, there's the point where you don't have to support your family, but you want to support your family, whatever that may look like. Like we were talking about, going out for a family meal. You said you like to pay, right?
Right. So I have 2 adult children that are quite successful. One of them is my partner, who's doing extremely well because he's just like does more than half of this business. And the other one is my daughter, who's quite successful, and they have children. And they can manage their children. They don't need my help.
Right.
But I'm still of the age where if we go out for dinner, I'm the matriarch. I am divorced, so it's me. But I am the one who's going to handle things. So I'm the one who says, no, I'll pay. They could, but I don't want them to. Eventually they will, but right now I don't want them to. Or I want to give my grandchildren the extra stuff that their parents might say no to.
That's grandma's job.
Absolutely. And or I like putting money in 529 plans that I know is helping for their college. So even though it's not, thank goodness for me and for a lot of my clients, even though it's not a necessity, it's a desire. So you
Right.
want to make sure when you're looking at it and planning for it, you're not looking at it from being a grandmother and saying, I want to do this. You say, oh, well, I'm going to retire. They're off on their own. But then I had one client who, when she was 70, she wanted to go on a family vacation with her 2 children and 4 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so hard to get them together. And
Yeah.
really, I don't want to make them pay so much money. And it's so, where are we going to go so that they can afford it and I can get them together? And I said to them, well, it's your 70th birthday. Why don't you give yourself a present? You've always talked that you wanted to go on an Alaska cruise. I said, what about if you offered to take them on an Alaska cruise and you were paying.
Mhm.
Find out how quickly all of a sudden they have time to do it.
Right.
And they did. And they went. And first, of course, it's like, can I afford it? Can I afford it?
Of course.
But every month she got her money and every month she saved. And so she
Hmm.
had her savings account enough money to pay for the cruise, not even dipping into her investments.
Wow.
Yes, she could afford it. So then she came back and she said to me, "Oh my God, that was the best present I ever gave myself. I will never forget that." So
Aw.
it's what you can do and are able to do and want to do that counts.
And that's why I do really like the title of your book. Like, it's not just money, it's life, because it is, she got to, that family time when you're 70 and enjoying that cruise with your grandkids, with your kids, that's life, that's living it. And so it's beyond the money and, just trying to find time and everything else. It's living your best life, which is so important.
And one of the things, and this is for a lot of women, so I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest problems for women is believing that they can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like amazing. You saved and saved and saved, and you have plenty of money, and you're so worried about being a bag lady, right?
Yep.
And so the biggest problem is, can you afford it? And that's why you need the additional support, the financial advisor who's going to sit there and be honest with you, make sure they're honest with you. Because some advisors don't want you to afford it because the more money they let you have, the less money they get paid on, right? So they want your account to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you really have to be careful of who your advisor is. But when you have a good advisor who's going to say to you, you can't do this every year, but you can absolutely do this for your 70th birthday. That's wonderful. You need to be able to be helped. That's my favorite part of my job, helping people spend their money.
Sounds like a fun time.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's about having these conversations, being prepared, having that right financial professional to kind of discuss your options with, discuss, the short-term plan, the long-term plan, and what you want your future to look like. Because like you said, we don't all need to die with all that money. Let's go spend some of it, live it up. And money is such an emotional thing. That's why even, financial professionals have their own financial professionals to help them sometimes. Because it's your money and you hold it in a different way than a kind of a neutral third party. But it's also great when that neutral third party has a lot of education behind them to help you with that as well.
Right. And in talking about this, mostly I've been talking about the people who can afford to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But for the younger people, you can be that person too. But it's really, really important that you say it's not just money, it's life, but money is important. So you have to pay yourself first. You have to get your money into your 401k. You have to get your money into your Roth IRA. You have to not be in credit card debt. So you have to be smart with money when you're younger so that you can have the life you want when you're older.
That's a great piece of advice. So if people are listening to this conversation and they're thinking about their retirement or some of these myths that they have going on, how can you support them with this?
Well, if they want to call me to ask me any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. You can give me a call at 845-627-8300, and you don't get me. So you have to make sure that my assistants know that I told you it's okay for me to talk to you. And then the other thing is you can go on my website, easternplanning.com. I have a lot of good information on that. You can buy my book on Amazon. It's not just money, it's life. Or I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook and I'm all over the place. So you can find me.
Awesome. Yeah, Beth can answer your questions if you have, any more questions about, spending more when you retire or taking care of your kids past 18, because they are things we want to plan for in our retirement. Beth is also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can always reach out to her from our site, pursestrings.co. And are there any last tips, tricks, piece of advice that you'd like to make sure our audience hears today?
No, but I already said it and I just want to say it once again. If you're the parent of young adults, make sure you oversee it. Make sure when they go off to college that you have a healthcare proxy, that you have their power of attorney. Make sure when they're young adults and they start having a family that they have the right life insurance. A
Yep.
lot of times you don't want to do that. You feel like you're stepping in. You have to be able to do it nicely, but very important. Very
Very
important.
important. You're very right about that. It can definitely change some lives. So it's important to have. Well, thank you everyone for jumping on today and listening to some of the realities and myths of retirement. And we will be back here next Monday for some more financial information. So thank you again, Beth, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.